Hi everyone, it's Katie and it is nearing the end of the year, which means that I am updating my Oracle deck collection video. I like to do this once a year to kind of keep track of my collections, and I just think it's fun to share. And also just a really cool way to kind of, I don't know, look back on my collection and how it changes over the years. So these are all of the Oracle decks that I currently own. Some are in print, some are out of print, some are indie, some are print on demand, plenty are mass produced. I've done quite a number of reviews of these decks, so I'll leave all those links below. I'll also leave the names of all of the decks that I'm mentioning in order in the description box below. I always leave the names of any decks that I mention in my videos in the description box. So if you like the look of a deck and you want to, kind of check it out, but you didn't hear the name or whatever, all that information will be in the description box. So let's get into it. These will be in no particular order, but I hope you enjoy this video. So the first one I'll show you, because it is out on my table at the moment, is the Oracle of the Dreamtime by Donny Hackinson and some Aboriginal artists. I think there's 4 of them that have done the art for this deck. This is a deck that I'm kind of really taking my time with getting to know and trying to approach it very respectfully. Because obviously I care very much about the plight of the Aboriginal Australian people, and so if I'm going to be working with a deck like this, I want to make sure that I'm doing so respectfully. But it is a beautiful deck, and I'm slowly getting there, and we're warming up to each other. I think it's my only round deck that I have at the moment. This card comes up for me quite a bit, the Dancing Brolga. And the fabulous Uluru. Next we have the Lavish Earth Crystal Affirmation cards. This is a fairly new deck to me, and it's very beautiful as far as crystal decks go. I feel like crystals are kind of hard to put into a deck and still make that beautiful. As beautiful as crystals are, you know, it's a bit hard to capture them in a beautiful way. But I think this deck has done a pretty good job. And, you know, we have the quote around the outside, a bit of like a message, a meaning of the card, as well as some keywords. So there's a lot packed into this deck. You don't get a guidebook, but I don't really think you need one. And there's lots of different crystals, plenty that I'd never heard of before, and some that I knew quite well. And I like the backing too. I don't very often like backings with the name, but I don't know, perhaps I mind less with Oracle decks. I think it's a very pretty one. And I like too how it comes with this extra card of crystals that are associated with the chakras. A deck that is even newer to me and that I'm kind of obsessed with is the Life Design cards by Laura McLaughlin. I'm so in love with this deck that I want to get her 2 other decks. But you know, they're not the cheapest Oracle decks in the world, and then including postage. Although Little Red Tarot does carry them, so I've added them to my wish list for Christmas. Although, you know, there's plenty of things on there, so we'll see if Blair feels like getting me another deck so soon after my birthday. But anyway, this deck is amazing. I've been working with it pretty much every day since I got it. And it has been like crazy accurate, like weird. You know those deck experiences you have that are just like, okay, if I didn't believe in divination before, I'm kind of on board now. And plus it's just beautiful. This card keeps coming up for me quite a bit. I just think it's gorgeous. And I mean, just the cardstock, everything about this deck is really, I don't know, it's just nice to hold, and the colors are just stunning, and the keywords and the titles of the cards are really different and interesting, and I don't know, I'm just really enjoying this deck. And it's been a while since I've been really taken by an Oracle deck. Well, maybe not that long. It feels like a little while for me, but I'm really into this deck. I just think it's gorgeous. Love how we have the observe and interact, and I kind of see this owl up here as the observer and this one as the one that's interacting. I just think it's gorgeous. So beautiful. Love all those colors. Next up we have the Vintage Wisdom Oracle by Victoria Mosley. Now, this was a deck that I used so much when I first got it, and I got it a little while ago now. but it is still a deck that is just a real staple in my collection. I use it a lot for mindfulness stuff, which I've done a video on. I just think this is a great one for mindfulness. I don't know, it just works for me. I love the colors. I really like the keywords, and the guidebook I think is really great. You know, there's not too much information in the guidebook, but there's also plenty. And I don't know, there's just something really beautiful about this deck. I know a lot of decks use these kind of images and a collage-y sort of way. And I mean, they all look beautiful, but they don't tend to be my thing. But for some reason, this one just really works for me. I really like it. It's reliable. It's one that you can pull out for anything and get a good solid meaning that you can really chew on and work with. Next up, we have a deck that I got earlier this year or at the end of last year. I can't remember. But it is the Wisdom Keepers by Rosie Aronson. This is a massive deck. I feel like I need to zoom out to show you properly. It's huge. But it's such a wonderful, wonderful deck. It makes me really emotional looking at these cards. These people feel so alive. I love this colored version. The black and white one was lovely, but it just felt too busy. Even though this one's the same artwork, I don't know, the color just kind of brings it together. That makes it's easier on the eye, or at least my eye anyway. I love the diversity in this deck. We have people of all different backgrounds and different ages. I think there's more older people than there are, you know, 16 to 21 year olds in this deck, which is just awesome. And they're just so real. And the guidebook is just intense and amazing and deep and full of so much wisdom and insight and information, even just like learning about different systems, because this deck does draw on a lot of different systems. It's a very psychology heavy deck, and it's created by someone who really knows her stuff. So, you know, there's a richness to not only the images but also the book. It's a really, really powerful, moving deck. And I like to use this deck for kind of bigger things, so like a monthly draw or a weekly draw sometimes, and just sitting with the card for a period of time. Maybe you could do a daily draw, but I would feel like after a week or so that would get too much for me. This is definitely more a deck that you sit with, or cards that you sit with over time. Next is another deck that I got this year and did a review on. Is the Flowers of the Night by Sherilyn Darcy, and this is possibly the greatest backing of any Oracle deck or any deck at all that I've ever seen. This is the independently published deck, of which there was only 100 or 1,000. I always forget. There was a limited number anyway. But it's been picked up by a publishing house and will be released again in the new year, I think, or soon anyway. I've ordered a copy of that one too, because she had on Etsy, you could get like a zine that she's created, and also apparently some improvements have been made to the book, which I'm looking forward to. Because if I had any criticism of this deck, it would be that the book is kind of, I don't think it was edited as well as it could have been, and I wanted some more information from it. But at the end of the day, I've had some really powerful, moving, beautiful experiences with this deck. And so for that reason alone, it's become one that's really special to me. So I'm interested to see the differences in the mass-produced deck that will be coming out soon. And I recently, just 2 weeks ago, gave Sherilyn's wildflower cards, or just flower cards, the yellow box one, to my bushwalking friend, because she was asking about cards, and I was like, would you like a deck? Would you like me to give you one, just so you can have a look and see if, you know, you want to get into reading cards? And she's like, oh, I'd love that. And so I've already given Sherilyn's flower reading cards to my mum for Mother's Day, and they were a big hit, so I gave them to my friend as well. So I've bought that deck twice and given it away twice. And I'm really feeling like I need to get her Australian wildflower cards again. They were a deck that I gave away too. They're just such Sherilyn's work, that because they're flowers and everybody likes flowers and her work is so vibrant and beautiful. They just make great gifts. Like, I don't always intend on giving them, but people just love them, which means that I buy them and then they're gone again. So I do need to get her Australian wildflower cards again, and I'll be getting the mass-produced edition of this deck soon. But yeah, I really love Sherilyn's work. I think it's just beautiful and it's really unique. And she obviously knows and loves these flowers in a really personal sort of way. And that just comes across in her lovely decks. Speaking of flowers, this is the Flowers of Love Oracle. I don't know if it's called an oracle, just the Flowers of Love. Mum found this in a secondhand bookshop in Perth, and she likes to get me oracle decks when she goes away. And this is a really interesting one. It's obviously flowers, and they're broken up into different stages of relationships. So here we see the third group of cards, or the third suit kind of, are the cards of passion. It's a really quirky, different sort of deck, and each card we get what it would mean in different positions and like the bit of the mythology. Because what's interesting about this deck is that the flowers are all associated with a different myth. So that's what's depicted in the background, is a scene of that myth. And then we also get the keywords, and then obviously the number and the name of the card, and the colour is to do with the suit. I call it suits. I guess they're more stages of love. But it's a lot more to this deck than you might first assume. And they don't always just go the easy route of associating the myth with the flower. They're really well thought out. And I just love this deck. It's such a cute little deck, and I don't know, Mum sometimes gets me decks that are more just cute and pretty and that I love because she bought them for me, whereas this has been one that I've used a lot. And it's just a really great little reading deck. It's a really pretty deck. I love the colours and the art in this deck too. So yeah, it's not one I hear a lot about, but it's a great little deck. While we're on the topic of decks Mum has bought me, we also have the Oracle de Miroirs. I really hate saying it because I know that I'm not saying it right. I've never learnt even a tiny bit of French, so I don't know. The pronunciation eludes me, I'm afraid. But this is such a cute little deck. This was the first Oracle deck Mum bought a couple of years ago. I love the backing. She and Dad went to Paris for their 25th wedding anniversary, and she came back with this cute little deck for me, which is really cool. I don't use it a lot. I use it every now and then with Mum, but I do really love it. There's something about it. I like this card too. Kind of reminds me of the Wisdom Keepers, how you have a mirror card. It's a really cool deck. It's a very colourful, fun deck too. Yeah. Not one I see around a lot, although I'm not sure how easy it is to get outside of France. And the most recent deck Mum got me is this one, the Tree of Life Oracle, which actually made me cry. I'm easy to make cry though. But anyway, there's not a lot of cards in this deck actually, but I just thought it was so beautiful. I know it's only subtle, and maybe I was just emotional that day, but there was just something about it that, I don't know, I just thought was really, really sweet. Again, it's not one that I hear spoken about a lot, and it's not one I've worked with a lot yet either. It's fairly new. It was from Mum's most recent trip away, and I just thought it was really lovely. And I mean, she bought it for me because, you know, I love trees and I go bushwalking and I'm always oohing and ahhing at how beautiful all the trees are, and yeah, so it was an obvious choice, but I just thought it was so beautiful. And I mean, it is very northern hemisphere, I think, because you know, we don't really get a whole lot of snow, at least not in my part of Australia. But it is really cute. I have a couple of little bonsais, so this works well for me. Yeah, it's just really sweet. I don't know. I love that Mum gets me little oracle decks when she goes away. Up next is one that I found in a secondhand bookshop a little while ago, but that I haven't really used. It's the Goddess's Knowledge cards. And they have like a message on the back and the image on the front. And they're really pretty. I just haven't really been working with goddess energy a whole lot lately. There's quite a few of these cards with the extra large borders, which I don't really get because, you know, I don't know. I'm assuming that this art was not made for an oracle deck and then kind of put into the oracle deck, but I do think this is a bit of a shame. And I feel like you could have cropped that image and fit it, but that's just me. That's just me. I don't mind borders, but I'm not a super fan of some having borders and some not. But anyway, it is very pretty. Another goddess deck that I have is the Goddess Guidance Oracle card by Doreen Virtue. But I only have like half of the deck because one of the readings that I offer on my shop is that I actually like send you a card with a little message. So a lot of these cards are gone already to new homes. And I love doing that reading. I think it's really cool having the card with you, and either putting it on your altar or carrying it around as a bookmark, whatever. I actually really like this deck. I've had a few other Doreen decks and I don't know. I don't really connect with them, whereas I mean this deck is problematic in some ways, but I think in many ways it is a really soft, beautiful introduction into divine feminine worship, which I think is something that is a really powerful thing that a lot of people, and women in particular, don't really know about or know how to access or begin. So I think this deck certainly has a place, and of all of Doreen's decks I think this is one of my favorites. And while we're on the goddess decks, this has to be the greatest Goddess Oracle deck ever. It's certainly my favorite at the very least. And I have done a review on this deck because I just think it's so very fabulous. And unlike Doreen's deck, I think this one has done a really good job of being respectful to both the culture and the goddess. You know, I love how strong Artemis looks. You know, she's not dainty and sexed up and pretty. You know, she's powerful. I like that this deck has kind of maintained that. And Kali is fierce, you know. I don't know. I just think she's done a really, or the creators have done a really good job of maintaining some authenticity, even though this is a eclectic deck full of goddesses from all over the world. Each card and each message in the book maintains some, what I interpret as really strong authenticity, which I think is awesome. So if I had to recommend one goddess deck, I wouldn't have to think too hard. It would be this one for sure. I just think it's totally fabulous and such a beautiful celebration of the goddess all around the world. Now let's talk about the Saltwater reading cards by Laura Bowen. I've recently done a review of this deck. This is one of my favorite decks for summer, which we are entering down here in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's a deck that I'm using a lot at the moment. And it's just wonderful. I love Laura Bowen's decks. If you've been following me for more than 5 minutes, you know that already. And this one is just such a fresh, vibrant, invigorating, exciting deck. It's just, the colors are incredible. I love how personal Laura Bowen's messages are in the guidebook. It's just such a wonderful deck. I love using this as a daily draw. It's just perfect for that sort of thing. And the colors are just incredible. And I do love how she kind of includes like elemental and, you know, natural phenomena, not just animals. Although obviously that does take up the bulk of the book, of the deck, pardon me. Such a wonderful, wonderful deck. And of course we can't mention the Saltwater reading cards without talking about the even more amazing Dreamtime reading cards. Now this is my favorite Oracle deck ever. I just think it's incredible, and I feel like I've said everything there is to say because I talk about it all the time. But it's just such a wonderful deck, and yeah, I love it, and I love Laura Bowen's work. I love the guidebook. I just think it's so wonderful and so beautiful. Love this. I do also have both of the Faeries Oracle. This is the Heart of Faerie. And these are decks that I haven't really worked with. I did a video not too long ago about the decks that I don't use or that I'm struggling to connect with, and Faeries Oracles were included in that. I think they're beautiful, and I had a short kind of little fling with the Faeries Oracle, the kind of sister deck to this one. But yeah, that ended pretty quickly, and I haven't managed to move them on yet, so I'm still holding out hope for a connection. I do have the book for both of them as well. This is the Faeries Oracle. I think I prefer this one overall, although I haven't really spent enough time to definitively state that. They're beautiful, and they make me feel something. But I think I hear all the time from people that, oh, this is a much more intense deck than it looks like, or you have to spend a lot of time with it, it's intimidating. And I think all of that has built up into, I don't know, like a barrier for me, which is interesting. I think they're both really beautiful and really interesting, and I don't want to give up on them. I don't want to get rid of them. Okay, here is another out of print Australian deck. But this one is really growing on me. This is the Wisdom of the Australian Animals, I think. And you know, these keywords and everything, it's not the most visually a beautiful, appealing deck. Love the echidna. But I've kind of found a purpose for it, which is a draw for our bushwalks. Me and my friend going on bushwalks. We try to go once a week. And we've been pulling a card from this deck, and it's been really great. And I think using this as another avenue to kind of better connect with the Australian landscape and experience. I don't know, I'm digging this new approach that I have with this deck, because I was kind of struggling with it before. Next up we have my only other Hay House deck, which is the Enchanted Map by Colette Baron-Reid. And apparently the cards are going everywhere. I haven't used this deck in a little while, so maybe it's itching to tell me something. This is just, I don't know, I haven't used it in a little while, but equally it's a really important deck for me, and it's not going anywhere. Personally, of the Colette Baron-Reid decks that I've had, this one I think is the most cohesive and effective in terms of achieving its goal, and most powerful. I did a pretty extensive review on this, but also on the book that kind of inspired the creation of this deck. And yeah, it's just a great deck. I really like it, and I think it's really quite unique in terms of its approach. It might just look like a everyday Oracle deck with pretty art, although the keywords are a little bit different, aren't they? But I think if you understand the whole concept of the map, this deck just kind of becomes a whole lot more interesting and dynamic, and one that I really had a lot of important breakthrough moments with. Definitely a really great, important deck for me. Now we have the Elements of Recovery by Beverly King. This is a cute little deck, which is based on the principles of the 12 steps for AA. I've written the little keyword on the cards. It just kind of takes out all of that really strict religious dogma that can kind of sometimes be really off-putting in the AA language. And yeah, I really like this deck, and if you don't know, I am 4.5 years sober, but I have had pretty significant problems with alcohol and some other drug substance abuse issues, but alcohol was my big one. And I don't know, I just have found this deck really helpful in kind of grounding and reminding me of why I'm doing this, and kind of brainstorming, you know, where I'm struggling and what I need to be focusing on. But I've also found it really helpful for other crutches that I have, as well as my perfectionism and things like that. I just think it's a great little oracle deck. I don't know if she even calls it an oracle deck. It's a great little deck, and I think it's really wonderful that it's available. I think it's a really important little tool. And last but not least is my wonderful little Faeries Oracle. This is another print on demand deck, and it is based on the artwork of JJ Granville, and I bought it to go alongside my Fantastic Menagerie, which is one of my favorite tarot decks. And it's just super cute. We have the title of the, most often the flower, or also just the picture, and then 3 keywords. It doesn't come with a guidebook or anything, but you know, there's more than enough to get you going. And it's just a really cute little deck. I really love it. It's been a lot of fun. This is another one where I will use more than one card readings. Like I actually do, you know, 3 card readings with this deck, which is not something I do very often with very many decks. But this is a cute little deck, and definitely a great substitute if you're like me and kind of really wanting the Victorian Flowers Oracle by Bubba Studios, which really would be the official sister deck to the Fantastic Menagerie. But this is a good alternative, which is still available and really quite reasonably priced, as it is just a print on demand. But I really like the stock and everything, and it's super cute and such a wonderful little find to go along with my Fantastic Menagerie. So that is it. Those are my oracle decks. That is my collection as of November 2017. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave those below. As I said, all information, video reviews, anything like that will be in the description box below, so please check that for any information. If you're new to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. I make 2 videos a week at the moment. Lots about tarot and oracle decks, also about alternative spirituality and paganism, and books. I read a lot of books. But anyway, I hope you guys are all having a great day, and I'll talk to you again very soon. So much love. Bye.